Let's talk now about some Star Wars. Something that we haven't done, honestly, in a little bit. Not since we talked about Sigourney Weaver joining the Mandalorian and Grogu movie, but there has been some news and some movement on the next slate of Star Wars movies. Some positive, some negative, and I think overall just pointing to even more lack of coherent vision over at Sony. So let's talk about all of this right now. So I wanted to give a little bit of an update on three movie projects that are going to be coming up here in the near future. The three movies that had been announced, and give some updates. Some good, like I said, some bad. And we'll talk about what this means for the Star Wars universe. So there were three movies that had been announced to be entering production in the Star Wars universe. The Mandalorian and Grogu, which was a continuation and perhaps the culmination of the Mandalorian TV show universe. We have the Rey movie, which takes place after episode 9, although whether or not this was episode 10 or not remains to be seen. Doesn't seem like it. Seems like it's going to be more standalone. But, the Rey Skywalker movie. And then we have the Dawn of the Jedi movie, which is going to be directed by James Mangold, going back into the origin story of the Jedi Order. So, updates that we've gotten recently. Turns out, Mandalorian and Grogu is done filming. And so, this movie, which will be coming out, I think, December 2025, it looks like it's coming. And that's amazing because it will end the drought of 6 years between Star Wars films. And while, I am somebody who does not love Mandalorian as much as other people, I enjoy it and I enjoy some parts of it more than others. I personally I'm cautiously excited for this movie. I hope that in a 2-hour story movie format, it's going to be able to cut the filler parts of the show, because honestly, for me, that's part of the reason that I'm not the biggest fan of the show. Is just I feel there's too much fluff. There's too much filler in the show. And I'm hoping that because it's going to be tightened up in the story, we'll see. There's going to be just a continuous story, and we'll see what happens there. So the Mandalorian and Grogu movie is done filming. That is exciting. Okay, good news. I'm going to stick with the good news here. And James Mangold is saying the Dawn of the Jedi movie could start filming in 2025. That's also good news. Maybe, in fact, that movie will take the place of the Rey Skywalker movie, which was going to release in December 2026. We will talk about that. But first, the Dawn of the Jedi movie is going to film in 2025. Now, things have, directors and writers have said Star Wars movies were going to film, and then they didn't. So this isn't necessarily a guarantee of anything in particular, just because of the dysfunctional nature of what's going on with Star Wars. This is not a guarantee of anything at all. Just want to make that abundantly clear. That being said, it is still better news to hear this than hear the opposite of, oh, we haven't really gotten the story yet. We'll get there eventually. Because how many times have we heard that in the last few months? Taika Waititi's movie, gone. Michael Waldron's movie, gone. Kevin Feige's movie, which probably was the Michael Waldron movie, gone. All these things, we can hear all these promises made, but none of the promises have been kept. So yeah, just by having James Mangold say that there is going to be filming soon is not a guarantee of anything, but it is a better sign than not. So there is that. Very good sign there. But then finally, biggest piece of bad news here, the Rey movie has lost its writer, Stephen Knight, and it is unlikely now to make the December 2026 release date that it was going to originally. This is yet another sign that Lucasfilm has no idea what it's doing, especially with the main Star Wars timeline, because The Mandalorian and Grogu, it's doing its own thing. It's following up on the success of the TV series and following up on that story. And Dawn of the Jedi, it looks like James Mangold is just completely doing his own thing. And it's a good thing. I'd like more stories like that. I'd love a Knights of the Old Republic trilogy. I'd love, more stories just set in the way past or the way future. Anything like that would be great. This Rey Skywalker movie, though, it seems like they do not have a grasp of what's going on here. And that is supremely disappointing. So again, if we had any hope that there was any kind of, cohesiveness, continuity here, for the time being, because I do think we will get episode 10 eventually, but for the time being, it just seems like Lucasfilm is trying to throw spaghetti at a wall and see what sticks, and the Mandalorian and Grogu movie stuck. Looks like, fingers crossed, the Dawn of the Jedi movie is going to stick and or stuck. Ahsoka and Acolyte, were made, did not really stick the landings, but they were made. But then this Rey movie, the Rogue Squadron movie, Patty Jenkins, that was Patty Jenkins' movie, Kevin Feige and Michael Waldron's movie, the Benioff and Weiss trilogy, Rian Johnson's trilogy. They're just trying to throw as much spaghetti against the wall. And I think Kathleen Kennedy is at the point where she's like, I don't really care if none of these happen. We'll just see what does happen. But I think that what it has done, it is that it has severely marred the reputation of Star Wars amongst the fans to where we're like, okay, show us what you got. half of what you say you're going to give us is not what you give us, and then what you do give us divides the fan base. And I think that that is really disappointing. I have not loved anything from Star Wars, honestly, since Rogue One. And that's disappointing. It's incredibly disappointing to me. It's been, 8 years almost since that has happened. And I'm disappointed with that. So here's hoping Skeleton Crew can turn it around. Here's hoping Mandalorian and Grogu can turn it around. Dawn of the Jedi sounds very interesting. So did The Acolyte and The Acolyte. Well, I am not a supreme hater of The Acolyte. I think it is very messy and has problems. I don't hate it as much as other people do, but it was still disappointing to me. Ahsoka was disappointing to me. I love the Clone Wars episode, but I love the Clone Wars, so it was appealing directly to my nostalgia, of course. Book of Boba Fett, even Andor, I really like Andor, but it perhaps is not my cup of tea necessarily, although I do really like Andor. Mandalorian, not a big fan of. Obi-Wan wasn't a big fan of. So I'm hoping and waiting for Star Wars to deliver on the promise of the premise, because Star Wars is amazing, but I just haven't gotten anything to that extent that I'm hoping for, and nothing so far has united the fan base, not since Mandalorian season 1, and that is disappointing. So we'll see. We'll see what Star Wars films come out. We'll be getting Mandalorian and Grogu unless something catastrophic happens. Looks like we'll be getting the James Mangold film. But after that, who knows? And that's not a very fun place to be in, especially with a franchise like Star Wars. But guys, what do you think about this news? Do you think these two films are going to release? And do you think that the Rey Skywalker movie is ever going to come out? Let me know in the comments down below.